The UFC has been spicing things up a lot these days. Anthony Smith, the one-time UFC lightweight championship challenger, may show up as a backup in UFC 283. Not just that, but the fighter also thinks that Darren Till may need to take a step down. Is the fighter going to join in on the action at UFC 283? What exactly did he tell Till? Let's dive deeper into it, starting with Anthony Smith's plans to serve as Glover Teixeira's backup. Anthony Smith, the one-time UFC lightweight championship challenger, has announced that he plans to move to Brazil in January 2023. He will take the spot as the official backup fighter in Brazil to the vacant light heavyweight title fight in UFC 283, a fight that features none other than his former foe, Glover Teixeira, along with Jamal Hill, a once scheduled opponent. Smith, who currently ranked the number 6 contender in the light heavyweight division, at least under the banner that the promotion has, was first scheduled to be a part of the Fight Night event that the UFC was holding, with the fighter up against Hill, the incoming title challenger, in March 2023. But that match was soon thrown to the wayside because of the title fight between the former champion Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev in UFC 282 around the end of 2022 ended up in a split decision draw. There wasn't a decisive winner for the title of light heavyweight champion. This led the UFC to book another vacant fight for the upcoming UFC 283, taking place in January 2023 between Hill and Teixeira. Since the fighter lost the return fight he had scheduled with the alum from Dana White's Contender Series, Anthony Smith has recently revealed more information about the plans he has to go over to Rio de Janeiro for the pay-per-view event that's being held on the 23rd of January. Why is he doing that? Well, mainly in the hopes that he will be on as the official backup fighter for the event. Next up, more from Anthony Smith. On the ESPN desk, while the broadcast for the UFC Vegas 66 was going on, the fighter talked about how he was for sure going over to Brazil for the event. He said that he's going to weigh in at 205 pounds and doesn't think that any of the fighters, whether it's Jamal Hill or Glover Teixeira, will have much of an issue with that. Everyone at the event is professional, but if something terrible happens, then Smith will be in line to step in. His last fight was at UFC 277 back in July 2022, where the native from Nebraska ended up suffering from a knockout loss in the second round and also suffered a severe injury of his ankle as he was up against Ankalaev. The loss ended the run of 3 wins in a row for him, right after he defeated Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute, and Ryan Spann. In May 2020, the fighter featured in the UFC Fight Night Jacksonville's main event, where he was up against none other than Teixeira, the former undisputed champion. But in the end, Smith ended up dropping an eventual 5th round ground strike loss by TKO to the favorite from Minas Gerais. Even before that, as he was up against John Jones while competing for the undisputed light heavyweight gold back in March 2019, he suffered a loss due to the judge's unanimous decision over the course of 5 rounds by the former pound-for-pound number 1. Additionally, more on Teixeira. Glover Lucas Teixeira is a mixed martial artist of Brazilian-American origins. Currently, he's competing in the UFC's light heavyweight division, where he won the title once and is now the former light heavyweight champion in the UFC. Not just that, but the fighter has previously also been a member of the Brazilian national wrestling team and been in a bunch of things such as Shuto, PFC, Impact FC, and WEC. Not just that, but he's also the second oldest champion in the history of the UFC, right behind Randy Couture, and one of the most senior champions in the promotion's history. As of the end of 2022, his ranking stood at number 2 in the light heavyweight division of the UFC. Not just that, but the fighter got his 7th degree Hawaiian Kempo black belt while he was under the owner of the Pit Martial Arts, Hackelman. Then, while he was under the head coach at American Top Team Connecticut, Luigi Mondelli earned his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The fighter also has a black belt in Vale Tudo under his belt that he earned while he was under Ruas Vale Valetudos Marco Ruas. Alongside all of that, he also got a certification in CrossFit. Lastly, his best fight. While one of his biggest fights may not have been as exciting as the time, he won over fighters such as Thiago Santos and Ryan Bader. But it's still safe to say that the fight in which he showed the most skill inside the octagon came when he won the UFC light heavyweight title against Jan Blachowicz. Despite the fighter having put together an incredible run and winning 5 fights in a row leading up to his battle for the title, only a few fans were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. This makes sense, since the fighter had just turned 42 years old before the fight. His opponent was in one of the best forms he's ever been in, and just came off of an incredible victory against Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion, in the fight before this one. But when it finally came to the two fighting it out in a match that was the headline at UFC 267, all of that seemed to not matter. Despite Blachowicz throwing some of his iconic strikes super early in the first round, Teixeira took almost no time to bring him out of his comfort zone with a takedown. The remaining rounds went by in pretty much the same way, with Teixeira finding the right opportunity to turn everything in his favor, and in the end, taking his opponent's back and not wasting a second to put in a choke that ended the fight. Anthony Smith believes Darren Till needs to take a big step down in competition. Coming up is Anthony Smith's advice to Darren Till. The fighter thinks that Darren Till may need to take a huge step back in the rankings. On a Saturday night on the 10th of December 2022 at UFC 282, Darren Till, with an MMA record of 18-5, was up against Dricus du Plessis, with a record of 18-2 in MMA in a middleweight fight. After one of the most recent fights he's lost, Till ended up recording a video and posting it on his Instagram. In the video, he talked about how we really don't get what we want and how it's super tough sometimes. The fighter then mentioned that now he's 29 years old, but despite that, he's been one of the best fighters out there ever since 2017, just 2 years after he joined the UFC back in 2015. He then went on to talk about why he made the video. He started by saying that he's making this video and feels like he needs to make it now because he wants people to know that he isn't retiring and that the video is anything but a retirement speech. He's 29 right now, and quitting the sport would be a stupid decision. Till continued on talking about how he wanted to fight and is still in progress. And while he wants to fight a lot in 2023, right now, he just wants to spend some time with his family and friends and enjoy Christmas along with anyone who supports him and his team back home. Moving on to disappointing results. As a surprise to no one, Till was super disappointed with the results that came out of UFC 282. And while he knew that he was on a losing skid, the fighter was still hoping that by taking just a little time off, he could take some time to practice, get better, and then get back in the winners column. On the other hand, while Anthony Smith was on the Believe You Me podcast by Michael Bisping, he talked about how he had some super important advice for Till, mainly claiming that the fighter really needs to back up and rethink things. He continued saying that while the fighter may not want to back up, he will still have to back up a lot for a bit. While, yes, this would give someone who's way down in the ranking a chance at going up the ladder, it's for his own good. But obviously, Till doesn't want anyone else going up, ranking better than him, or his ranking getting dropped. He doesn't want to do that because the only thing on his mind right now is climbing up even higher. He wants to swing for the fences, get back to the spot he once had, and finally work on getting even better. According to Smith, this could be the best scenario for Till, that he can use this as an advantage. Let the up-and-comers, these super young fighters, go up against some of the biggest names in the sport that hold pretty decent rankings, and use that step down in competition as a way to get back into his proper game. Finally, coming off a loss. Though the biggest problem with that would be that Till drops down to the same ranking as them, and then he has another big problem on his hands. Smith, with an MMA record of 36-17, is coming right off of a loss that he suffered to Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev, who has an MMA record of 17-1. Back in July 2022, when the two fought against each other in the UFC 277. But even before that, Smith was actually on a winning streak for 3 whole fights. Now, the fighter from the light heavyweight division is working and preparing for his next fight that's going to take place in the UFC Fight Night in March 2023, though his opponent hasn't been confirmed yet. Despite all of that, should Darren Till listen to Smith and take a step back, giving new and upcoming fighters a better chance at fights that are on a much bigger scale? That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on the fighters? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.